So for costing, I would say you can spend both too long and not enough time to make it a valuable test, and therefore I'll give it a 7. I don't think that you get to see how somebody thinks or solves problems, and so you're going to miss out on the soft skills. Therefore, I would give effectiveness 5. I do think that you can prepare for these kind of problems. The fact that it's a takeaway means you could search online for similar solutions to problems and present someone else's results. So from a fakeability point of view, I would have to give it a very low score. I'm going to say a 4 because it is very fakeable. I think you could spend a lot of time making something very relevant to your company and the kind of problems that you're trying to solve on a day-to-day basis. So I'm going to give it a higher score of 6. I do think this is a very popular solution because developers think they can come up with the kind of problems that will indicate the kind of developers that they want to employ. So it is, yeah, I got to give this a 10. It is incredibly popular. Might be costly, but they are comprehensive and they're configurable. They're going to be very bad for a one dev requirement, but if you have lots of devs that you need to hire, then this is probably a cost-effective solution. So overall, I have to go in the middle. I'll say 5. I think this can be a more overall test of your skills as a developer, so they can be quite effective, but it can also be weak. You know, you can have tests where you don't have access to the internet because it's offline, and this becomes unrealistic in terms of what people do on a day-to-day basis. So for effectiveness, I'm still going to give it an 8. For fakeability, I would say your only prep is academic and real-world experience, so therefore you can't fake this in any way. I don't think it's going to be a 10. I think you get an academic overview of someone with tests like this, but I don't think they're particularly good for relevance, because if you're not picking the right questions and you're making it to your own company's requirements, then the relevance is just going to get lower and lower. So I would still give it a 7 overall. I'm not being asked to do many of these in my career, and so I would say very low score. I'd say it's probably a 3. I think it's quite cheap to come up with a few ideas that become the scenarios that people want to either talk about or write some code with relation to. So you can make it quite relevant, and at the same time, the costing will therefore be cheap. So I'm going to call it 6. I think from this, you'll get more about the soft skills of a developer if you're actually doing this during an interview time, if you're talking with them. But if you're asking them to solve a problem, maybe not quite so much. I do think this could be a bit of a weak choice. You're really going to get some of their soft skills, but it's not really as their hard skills of problem solving and development. So effectiveness, I can really only say 5. I've been asked the same questions by different interviewers at different companies at different times. So therefore, I've had prior experience of the same questions. So in a sense, I've been able to prepare for that. So from my perspective, it's therefore fakeable, maybe with experience. So I'm going to have to give it a lower score, so 3 or 4. Depending on the usage, you can get soft skills from this. So I would say you could get quite high relevance out of this as well, of about, I'm going to say 8. Certainly I've seen this in a number of interviews a number of times over the years, but not always. So I'm going to say slightly more than average. I'm going to say 6. I think the costing can be quite high, but again, it depends on how much preparation you want to put into it. So I think this is quite a subjective thing to say. So I'm going to say a 6. Taken seriously, this could be very real world scenarios, and so it could be very effective. So I'm going to go with an 8. We can't prepare for something like this, so therefore, from a fakeability perspective, I got to give it a 10. Relevance: real world dev experience in an interview. Missing the research aspect of a solution, possibly, though, so I would say a 7. I don't know why it's actually so unpopular, or at least in my experience, because I've only ever done something like this maybe once or twice. So I'm going to have to say 1. Okay, costing. I would say this is quite high because you're giving up time on site for someone to do some kind of tech task or something. So the costing is actually quite high because you're using premises, you're using everyone's time in that regard. So I'm going to go with an 8. Sadly, this kind of testing, I don't think is relevant. Sometimes we can be. I think we're asked to do too much work with not enough time. So if you're trying to simulate that and to see how someone is trying to respond under pressure, maybe there's some value in that. But it shouldn't be down to the individual. It should be down to a team at that level. Therefore, it's I can't say it's particularly effective. So I'm going to have to go with a 2. Fakeability. With regards to tech tasks, etc., I would say people will just look for common things online. What have other people done? What have we done in the past? There's always a temptation to reuse something. So therefore, there's also the ability to find that thing online as the person on the other end of the interview. So therefore, I'm going to go in the middle. I'll say a 5. Personally, I don't think that this kind of task can be particularly relevant to the real world experience. So I'm going to have to go with a 4. Certainly, I've seen this kind of testing of candidates, and I've had to use it myself. So it still doesn't happen that often, though. So I think I'm going to go with a 4. I think the favorite tech task for me that I've done in the past is someone asked me to create a zoo, and and then they used that as a way of testing me to say, oh, okay, but if the lion gets out and he goes over and he kills a giraffe or something, so there were different scenarios that were being played out and watching me make changes to the code. So they used a tech task as a way of getting me to do other things as well, and then seeing how I respond to change and whether I can get the code to respond to change as well. So I think my favorite on-site thing was I was asked to create basically a zoo, and then they just started changing the scenarios, and I actually quite enjoyed that.